It always starts the same way. She looks at you not as you are, but as who she imagines you might become. You feel it in her eyes, don't you? That flicker of hope, or is it hunger? You think you're being seen, but you're not. You're being measured, assessed, scanned like a blank canvas waiting for her to paint her masterpiece. But the masterpiece isn't you. It never was. And Stoicism, it warned you. Not with seductive theories or poetic flattery, but with the cold, steady hand of reason. It speaks as a philosophy forged in the crucible of hardship, honed by men who stared unflinchingly into the nature of the human condition. Stoicism is the lifelong discipline of seeing clearly, stripping away illusion, and accepting the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. And it understands something sobering about human desire, especially in women. It reveals that many don't fall in love with a man himself, but with the idea of him. With the fantasy. With the projection. And the most unsettling truth. They often don't even realize they're doing it. You may think she's choosing you, but what she's actually choosing is the version of you that lives in her mind, a character in her private story. And when you stop playing that role, she doesn't change the story. She changes the actor. Stoicism wouldn't dress this up in psychological jargon like animus, but it recognizes the danger of unchecked inner forces. When a woman's internal image of the ideal man becomes her compass, she risks losing touch with reality. She becomes ruled not by reason, but by impulse cloaked in conviction, quick to moralize, quicker to condemn, and blind to her own contradictions. It doesn't sugarcoat this. It calls it what it is, self-deception. A failure to examine one's own soul. A refusal to take responsibility for the storm within. And men, you fall for it. Because no one taught you to tell illusion from intimacy. You mistake being wanted for being known. You confuse being chosen with being understood. You believe her when she says you're different, not realizing you're just the next man cast in a part she's rehearsed since girlhood. And when the illusion collapses, when you're no longer the hero she imagined, you're left stunned, betrayed, asking what you did wrong. But you didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped fitting the fantasy. Stoicism teaches that the only path to peace is within. That the chaos of others should not disturb your inner fortress. And here lies the hard truth, most men never build that fortress. They spend their lives chasing validation, outsourcing their worth to the approval of women, of the world, of anything but themselves. But a man who is whole does not beg to be seen. He stands, quiet, unshaken, even when unseen. Self-mastery, as Stoicism defines it, is not glamorous. It is war. A quiet war within. Against weakness, against cowardice, against the hunger to be loved before you've learned to respect yourself. Stoicism doesn't promise admiration. It promises clarity. And clarity hurts. It forces you to see how often you've bartered your identity for attention. How often you've performed instead of lived. Because here's what Stoicism reminds you. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. Not through her affection, but through your integrity. Not by being adored, but by being awake. A man who has faced his own inner storms cannot be seduced by fantasies, hers or his own. He is no longer a player in someone else's dream. He is the author of his own life. Stoic philosophy teaches that men often enslave themselves to what they believe will bring them peace, status, love, control. But the cost of that slavery is the very soul they're trying to protect. You call it love. Stoicism calls it illusion. You tell yourself it's partnership. Stoicism calls it a failure to govern the self. You reshape yourself to please her. And forget what you looked like before the mask. And women? They feel this. Far more than you think. The very traits you believe make you lovable, your predictability, your neediness, your constant availability, are often the very ones that drain her desire. Why? Because the feminine, like life itself, is drawn not to safety, but to strength. To the man she cannot fully possess, define, or domesticate. Reveal too much too soon, surrender your spine, hand over your center, and you vanish before her eyes. And yet, here's the trap. You fear being alone more than you fear being false. So you keep acting. Keep pleasing. Keep losing yourself. But Stoicism warns, if you do not rule yourself, you will be ruled, by others, by passions, by projections. It teaches that death comes to us all. And the real tragedy isn't that we die, but that we never truly live. Most men will never begin this journey. Because it starts with solitude. With silence. With staring into the abyss of your own heart until you can no longer pretend. Until the illusions crack. Until the voice that whispers, "You're nothing without her," finally dies. And it will fight. It will scream that you need her. That no man can survive alone. But Stoicism reminds you, you were born alone. You will die alone. And in between, your duty is not to be needed, but to be noble. To choose reason over reaction. Presence over performance. Truth over comfort. That man, the man who stands grounded in his own soul, cannot be used. Cannot be discarded. Cannot be owned. And that, paradoxically, is when women feel most drawn to you, not because you seek them, but because you don't. Not from pride. From peace. And in that peace, you no longer seek to change her, fix her, or save her. You simply see her, clearly. You understand, she must face her own illusions, her own shadows. She must walk her own path. You cannot walk it for her. You can only walk your own, and walk it so truthfully, so steadily, that it reflects reality back to those who dare to look. Most will turn away. But a few, a rare few, will meet your eyes and thank you. And that is the difference between being adored for the performance, and being respected for the man you truly are. Because once you stop performing, something strange happens. People shift around you. They sense the weight of your presence. It unsettles them. Why? Because you no longer play by the rules of need. And Stoicism, grounded, timeless, unsentimental, would recognize this. Not with arrogance. With quiet acknowledgement. Because when you finally walk away from illusion, from projection, from the desperate hunger to be loved, you don't become distant. You become free. Freedom. It's a word men throw around like a trophy, yet most have never actually touched it. They confuse freedom with indulgence, with rebellion, with doing whatever they want. But that isn't freedom. That's impulse in disguise. True freedom is internal. It's quiet. Still. A kind of sovereignty that no one can give you because no one can take it away. Stoicism teaches, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the essence of real masculinity. Not dominance. Not control. But the discipline to own your own mind. And once you do, the projections of others begin to lose their grip on you. You no longer need to be desired, because you desire to know the truth. You no longer need to be understood, because you understand yourself. You no longer need to be chosen, because you have chosen to live as you are. And this, paradoxically, is what begins to draw people to you. Not because you pander. But because you radiate. Not because you bend. But because you stand. And that standing, that inner uprightness, makes people question themselves. It forces them to face their own masks, their own illusions, their own games. Most will hate you for it. A few will follow. And one or two might even try to love you. Not the version of you they invented in their mind. But you. The man. Stoicism reminds us that the most powerful man is not the one who conquers others, but the one who conquers himself. It teaches that fame, affection, status, all of it is fleeting, like dust in the wind. The Stoics ruled themselves with the same discipline they applied to the world, knowing everything could be lost in a breath. Because they understood something you must too. The world is not here to complete you. It is here to reveal you. And every relationship, every desire, every rejection, every longing, they are not interruptions. They are invitations. Invitations to go inward. To see what still lives in shadow. To confront what is still afraid. To face the man you were before anyone told you who you were supposed to be. You will stumble. You will regress. You will be tempted to put the mask back on. And that's okay. Growth isn't linear. Truth doesn't arrive all at once. Sometimes it comes in silence. Sometimes through heartbreak. Sometimes through a single sentence in a book you didn't even mean to open. But it always comes. And when it does, you have a choice. To run. Or to stay. To hide behind your performance. Or to live from your core. One Stoic said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Simple. Brutal. True. Because once you stop waiting for approval from women, from the world, from your father's ghost, you begin to see clearly. You begin to act from principle, not persuasion. From purpose, not pressure. From clarity, not confusion. And clarity, above all, is rare. It cuts through charm. Through charisma. Through empty words and cheap attraction. It sees. It endures. It leads. This journey, of becoming the man who does not perform, will cost you. It will cost you the comfort of fitting in. It will cost you the fantasy of being endlessly adored. It will cost you the illusion that love means being understood without ever having to explain yourself. But what you gain is everything. You gain yourself. And no woman, no crowd, no culture can take that from you. So be warned. If you choose this path, you will lose things. You will lose false love. You will lose shallow approval. You will lose the comfort of playing a part that everyone likes. But you will gain one thing that no one else can give you. Your soul. And in the end, that is all that ever mattered. The Stoics never asked the world to validate their virtue. They simply lived it. You can do the same. And in doing so, you will find that the world begins to reflect something different back at you. Not applause. But recognition. Not fantasy. But reality. Not addiction. But peace. Conclusion, the final step. There is a moment on this path when you will look around and realize, you have become the man you were searching for. Not perfect. Not invincible. But true. You will have scars. You will have regrets. But you will also have something else. Integrity. A backbone that cannot be bought. A mind that cannot be twisted. A heart that, though bruised, remains open. This is the man the world doesn't always celebrate, but desperately needs. The man who chooses truth over comfort. Solitude over performance. Substance over surface. The man who no longer fears being alone, because he no longer fears himself. And when you meet a woman who sees that in you, who meets you where you are without trying to rewrite your lines, you will know something rare has happened. You have not been chosen. You have been seen. And even if that moment never comes, even if you walk this path alone for the rest of your life, you will know this. You did not trade your soul for the illusion of connection. You stood. You chose. You became. And in the end, that is the legacy of the true man. Not a list of conquests. Not a trail of performances. But a life lived from the inside out. As the Stoics lived. And as you now can. Not because someone gave you permission. But because you finally stopped asking. Final reflection, the man who stands alone. There comes a moment, not always loud or obvious, when something inside you breaks. Not the kind of break that leaves you shattered, but the kind that splits a mask in two. A crack in the illusion you've worn like skin. You don't even notice it at first. Just a whisper, a discomfort, a subtle shift. But then it grows. The lies get heavier. The roles you've been playing begin to itch. And the image you've tried to live up to becomes harder and harder to maintain. This is the moment where the path begins. Not the path toward being loved, admired, or approved, but the path toward being real. Toward being whole. Toward becoming a man not shaped by the desires of others, but sculpted by his own values, his own fire, his own depth. This is the Stoic path. And it begins, always, in silence. Because before you can stand as a man, you must be still as one. Still enough to hear the voice beneath all the noise, the voice you've ignored for years. The one that doesn't scream, doesn't flatter, doesn't beg. It just tells the truth. And the truth is this. You've been chasing shadows. The approval of women. The acceptance of society. The attention of the world. All of it, shadows on the cave wall. And like Plato's prisoner, you mistook them for the real thing. But what you were truly hungry for, was you. Not the you they told you to become. Not the version that pleases the crowd. The real you. The man who can walk into his own solitude and not flinch. The man who doesn't need to be needed. The man who builds a life not on fantasy, but on foundation. This man isn't born from praise. He is forged in pressure. Not the pressure of performance, but the pressure of presence. The discipline of solitude. In the Stoic tradition, solitude is not loneliness. It is clarity. It is the environment in which you face the one opponent who cannot be tricked, seduced, or conquered, yourself. Solitude strips away the distractions. It silences the applause. It ends the performance. It forces you to ask. Who am I when no one is watching? What do I believe in when there's no reward? What do I stand for when I stand alone? These are the questions that separate the man from the mask. And if you are brave enough to stay in that silence long enough, if you do not reach for your phone, for validation, for the comfort of a woman's approval, something begins to happen. You start to see. You start to see how much of your life was spent in reaction. How often you let desire steer you. How many times you mistook attention for affection, performance for partnership, lust for love. You begin to see how many of your so-called choices were just adaptations, calculated shifts to win the approval of those around you. And it is in this moment of brutal clarity that your journey truly begins. Not the journey of becoming someone else, but the journey of unbecoming everything you're not. Letting the illusions die. There is a death that all real men must go through, the death of the false self. The death of the pleaser, the charmer, the performer. The death of the man who needs to be told he is worthy. This death is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing practice. Every day, you will be tempted to put the mask back on. Especially when the world rewards the mask more than the man. Women will tell you you're too cold. Society will say you're too intense. Friends may call you too distant. But don't mistake their discomfort for your dysfunction. People fear what they cannot possess. They are unsettled by what they cannot control. When you stop being predictable, when you stop playing by the rules of approval, you become dangerous. Not violent. Not volatile. But sovereign. And sovereignty is threatening to those still ruled by need. So they will try to pull you back. Into the drama. Into the games. Into the fantasy. But you don't owe them a performance. You owe yourself the truth. The woman who sees you. One of the most painful realizations a man has on this path is that many women never truly saw him, only their idea of him. And for a time, this might make you bitter. You may harden. You may withdraw. But eventually, the bitterness fades. And what takes its place is understanding. You realize that she, too, was lost in a story. That she, too, was acting. That her projections were not evil, just unexamined. And while some men use this realization to become cynical, to manipulate, to dominate, the Stoic man does not. He simply sees. He sees that he cannot save her. He sees that her awakening, like his, must come from within. And if, by grace or grit, he meets a woman who sees him not as a fantasy, but as a flawed, living, breathing man, he will recognize her instantly. Not because she adores him, but because she doesn't try to fix him. Not because she completes him, but because she doesn't need to. She sees him as he is. And that is enough. And if she stays not out of dependence, but out of resonance. And that is rare. And that is sacred. But even if she never comes, even if you walk this path alone, you will know this. You have already been chosen. By yourself. And that is the most powerful love there is. Living from the core. To live from the core means to live from principle, not preference. It means your behavior is no longer dictated by reactions, by desire, or by what others might think. You don't chase women. You don't chase fame. You don't chase comfort. You chase clarity. And clarity demands sacrifice. It demands that you let go of shallow approval in exchange for inner alignment. That you give up being liked in order to be respected. That you forfeit comfort in order to cultivate character. The Stoics called this living according to nature, not in the sense of forests and rivers, but in the sense of your deepest, truest essence. Your masculine nature is not toxic. It is not outdated. It is not a problem to be solved. It is power, governed by principle. It is fire, held in a vessel. And when it is integrated, when it is no longer seeking permission, it becomes immovable. It becomes presence. And presence, more than charm, more than looks, more than status, is what creates real attraction. Because people can feel it. They can feel when a man is not performing. When he is not pretending. When he is not trying to earn his right to exist. They may not know what to call it. But they feel it. And some will hate it. Because your presence reminds them of their own absence. But others, the few, will be drawn to it. Not because you are perfect. But because you are real. Freedom, the final reward. In the end, this path is not about women. It's not even about masculinity. It's about freedom. Not the kind of freedom sold in ads, the fast cars, the exotic locations, the indulgent lifestyle. But the quiet, steady kind. The kind that cannot be bought, borrowed, or stolen. The kind that lives in your spine. That whispers through your actions. That radiates from your stillness. You are free when you no longer betray yourself to be loved. You are free when you can sit with your pain and not flinch. You are free when you no longer fear her leaving, because you are no longer afraid of being alone. And you are free, truly free, when you can look in the mirror and know that the man staring back is no longer a stranger. This is the freedom the Stoics spoke of. The freedom to own yourself. To govern your own soul. To meet death not with regret, but with resolve, knowing that while the world may not have understood you, you understood yourself. And that, in the end, is all that matters. The final word. So here you are. Standing on the edge of a life you didn't know you were waiting to live. No more masks. No more games. No more waiting to be chosen. Because you have chosen. You have chosen to be a man. Not of reaction, but of reason. Not of need, but of presence. Not of fantasy, but of truth. This is not an easy path. It is not glamorous. It will not fill your inbox with praise or your bed with admirers. But it will fill your heart with something even rarer. Peace. The peace of integrity. The peace of inner order. The peace of a man who has stopped performing and started living. A man who no longer runs from pain, from truth, from himself. A man who, like the great Stoics before him, has learned the most sacred truth of all. That freedom is not given. It is earned, in silence, in solitude, in the soul. And that once you have it, no one can take it from you. Not even love. Especially not love. Because the man who is free does not fall in love. He walks beside it, eyes open, heart clear, soul unshaken. He does not beg to be seen. He simply stands. And in that standing, he is.